He's the T-Rex of political talk. Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Well, he's a best-selling author, researcher, former ambassador to the United Nations under Ronald Reagan. He needs no introduction. One of his websites is loyaltoliberty.blogspot.com. Got that up on screen as we simulcast the radio show on the web / as a TV show. He also writes for WorldNet Daily and other big publications. Unhealthy for Liberty is one of his latest pieces. He also has another great piece, Socialist Right and Left, Same Difference. And so we'll go over some of that with him today. A great political mind. And again, we're honored to have him joining us. Some stations just joined us, so I want to recap. We see the town halls, the people, Republican, Democrat, old, young, black, white, coming out and saying, we don't want this. And they have copies of the bill. They have the subsections. The Democrats for 3 weeks tried to lie, and even some Republicans did, and say, that's not in there. This isn't in there. Now they're having to admit all the things we said were in there that were in there and apologizing. How do we ensure that this resistance continues? Because as you just said, they're going to continue to come back probing. You know, they put the pressure on, we resist, they back off. I mean, give us your battle plan of how to not just hold them off, but actually regain some ground, because you know, Ambassador, we've lost so much liberty.
Well, I think that we have to be clear about what it is we're opposing, because I think that the president's overwhelming response to this health care program reminds me a little of what happened on the immigration bills when they were trying to destroy our sovereignty. You're not just looking at an opposition to specific proposals and elements. I think what happened is some of these things, particularly, for instance, the provisions that seem targeted at rationing care for the elderly, at setting up a system that would pressure people into accepting death and giving up therapy, side by side with provisions that might expand funding for illegal immigrants, which would therefore be being paid at the expense of our loved ones being encouraged to die. These things were rejected because they fundamentally offend conscience. They seem contrary to the American way of life and the understanding we have of the intrinsic worth of human beings. With that in mind, you look at the whole picture, there are the invasive elements that would take control, first of all, of the health sector, of the terms of remuneration of doctors and things of this kind. So they claim that it's not aimed at phasing out the private sector. Two things are true. Barack Obama himself, in his early career, explicitly said he was for universal single payer, right? And then it comes out a proposal that has elements in it that, yes, over the course of a little time, are going to push the system in that direction. And these elements are backed by the big corporate guys who are trying to get out from under the health care costs so they can have bigger profits. Are we all supposed to be stupid that we don't realize what's happening? Of course not. People do realize it.
Wow.
And then you look at what's going on overseas with Canada and Great Britain, these other examples, and it turns out that there is rationing, there is pressure for the old people, there are long lines, there is poor access, there is lower quality in terms of medical personnel and so forth. And so the notion that everybody's going to have access is countervailed by the fact that they'll have access to a worse system in which they'll get worse service, in which they will no longer have the sense that a whole bunch of people have in America, that when something goes wrong with you, it's dealt with expeditiously, right? That won't even be there. And so I think people are looking at this saying, wait a minute, this is not America. This is not how we live. And we have been relying on a system that, yes, has its shortcomings. You know, they say that we're supposed to let government take over 100% of our lives because we want to care for the 10% of people who they say don't have access to some kind of health insurance right now. That doesn't make sense. So I think a lot of people have begun to suspect the truth. The aim of this isn't to improve health care. The aim of it is to give that power to government over life and death and finances and privacy and personal decisions, so that we'll be in a position where we must hang on the decisions and words and power of the people in power, which gives them great control, so that they can remain in power at our expense. That is what totalitarian government is all about. That's what socialist takeovers are about. They use issues in order to achieve power. They're not really interested in the result.
Wow, Ambassador Alan Keyes is our guest. Absolutely amazing how you just laid it all out. And everything you were saying there is true, because right in front of me today, ABC News and MSNBC and the New York Times in my stack, they spin it like it's good. And they go, look, the big insurance companies, look, the big doctors' unions, look, all these special interests are getting together with this $12 million ad package that the healthcare plan's good. And really that is all it is big corporations really want it so they can then have liability protection to not give people the care they've already paid for. And then the Congressman Conyers says they can't read a 1,300-page bill, but the government can then implement all our health care. I mean, they can't get anything right, but and really they're just grabbing the whole industry for themselves. So I'd like you to comment on that. And then secondarily, it's come out that White House-funded groups, Acorn and others, I mean, here's the actual ad: defend President Obama's health care plan over August recess, $500 a week. Now is your chance to make health care work. Here they are, jobsthatmatter.org, a Democratic-funded group, paying people, and then they got caught. Obama camp plant fake document, and Che Guevara fan at Jackson Lee Forum, and they got caught with this woman who works for this lady right here in the shot, who works with Obama, famously in the photo with her and Che Guevara, and then here she is faking, going to staged questioners, posing as doctors, saying, so even the few people that they go to at their own town halls, it's staged, Ambassador. They've been accusing us of it being staged. They are caught staging it.
Well, see, but this corresponds, and I hope a lot of people, well, maybe a lot of people don't, but one of the standard practices of the old communists, right, in the 20th century, was to accuse their opponents of doing the things that they themselves do routinely. And that's exactly what has been happening here. That particularly is with respect to these staged meetings. In the Soviet Union and Eastern European countries under communism, under these dictators in the Third World, this idea of the staged event where you pretend you got all kinds of public support when you've actually hand-picked people to come out and do show trials, as it were, and show press conferences and all of this, that's standard practice. These people are simply showing themselves to be exactly what they are, a bunch of leftists following the handbook of the communists, trying to impose this system on the people of the United States against our will, with lies and staged manipulations of perception and so forth, exactly as Alinsky and others have recommended to the left-wingers that they do. It also, of course, smacks of the tactics that were used during the era of the first National Socialist push, the right-wing National Socialists. We call them Nazis, right? And they had the same kind of approaches for manipulating politics and practiced the same effort to vilify their opponents and to dehumanize them in various ways with name-calling and junk like this, just as these people are now trying to pretend that anybody who looks at this on the basis of the facts, analyzes it in light of the ideology and what it's all about, calls what they're doing socialism. And you've had these people standing up and saying, well, that's racist. That's just a code word for race. What nonsense is this? Do they really think we're that stupid?
Well, I mean, they clearly, Ambassador, and I want your opinion on this, it's cold-blooded. They know. They took all these well-meaning people that voted for Obama. I know a lot of rednecks around here in Texas did, to prove they weren't, racist, wanting to have, everybody live together in peace. And then now cold-bloodedly, these poverty pimps, these Annenberg Foundation people, these Ford Foundation people, knowingly come in and say, if you disagree with cap and trade, if you disagree with his policies on government health care, you are a racist. And I get hundreds of emails a week saying that I'm secretly a white supremacist because we posted the Obama Joker photo saying socialism. I mean, isn't that really the racism, or invoking the racism as divide and conquer cold-bloodedly? Isn't that?
Oh, absolutely. But then, think about it. The whole Obama effort was a cold-blooded invocation of race. Everything about what these people did was a cold-blooded effort to play the race card. And that's what it was all about. And the whole idea that you should vote for somebody not because of the color of their skin, but because of their qualities and characteristics and your agreement with what they were trying to